Help support AMTV by becoming a patron, an AMTV staff member, and following us over on Twitter.
Hey there guys, it's Adam Martin here, and welcome to this week's instalment of Now Review. And this week we're going to be going way back into the past. We're going to be looking at Now That's What I Call 60s, and Now That's What I Call 70s. And these two albums are quite nice because, for those who don't know, the first Now 1, came out in 1983, and obviously the main numbered series reflects, hit songs of whenever the albums were released. So we didn't have many 60s and 70s songs, apart from a few re-releases, a few compilations, but to have decade-centric albums, I thought this was a fantastic idea, and I'm glad they've stretched themselves as far back as the 60s. And speaking of the 60s, that is the first album we're going to be looking at. So here is Now That's What I Call 60s. First thing to notice, I think, would be the cover art. Look at that, all the 60s kind of pop art. You've got a lava lamp there, you've got a 60s style chair. I just love this mix of colours. It screams 60s. If you know anything about 60s art, this is very 1960s. And the spine, for some reason, is quite small font-wise. You look at all these other spines I have here, you can see they take up the majority of them, but this only goes sort of across the middle, which I found a bit strange. But anyway, strangeness aside, let's have a look. And this album has 74 60s hits. Now, most 3-disc compilations like Now, they'll have maybe around 60 songs. This has 74. I'll get into why maybe a bit later. So this is CD 1. And already you're seeing some cracking stuff there. Suspicious Minds by Elvis, Dusty Springfield, Benny King, Otis Redding. Oh, there's just so many good songs on here that I'm sure you can all see as I'm scrolling down, and a lot of these made their way onto my iPod there. So that was the first disc. Let's have a look at disc 2. White a Shade of Pale, what a great song. Same with Nights in White Satin. Oh, there's just so many great songs. I can't understate that. If you know anything about 60s music, so many 60s songs are just brilliant even now. And here is CD 3. So a bit of Frank Sinatra there, the Supremes, the Kinks, the Trogs. Oh, just so many good songs. And there you go, those are your discs, and this came out in 2017, so this is quite a recent release. And why are there 74 songs? Well, it's probably because a lot of 60 songs were shorter than they are now. A lot of them were only 2 minutes in length, just over 2 minutes, or barely 3 minutes. So if songs are shorter, that means we can get more songs on the album. So now let's have a look at the discs themselves. And the advert here is the home of hit music in your pocket, the Now Music app. Download the app for free now. Yeah, I haven't had much time for the Now app, to be honest. I don't find it that engaging. So there's disc 1, a lovely sort of, pink 60s vibe, and the other 2 discs follow that same structure there. You've got a similar one in blue, and then you've got the similar one in yellow. So overall, this is a very nice 60s artwork they're going for here, and those are your 3 discs. So overall, should you pick up the Now 60s album? Well, if you're a big fan of 60s music, then I think you definitely should. There are some notable absences here, mainly acts such as the Beatles, but of course the Beatles are the company that owns their songs is very strict with their rights and stuff, and they don't just lease them out to anybody. So no, sadly there are no Beatles songs on here, and even if there were, they'd probably make up a decent quarter of the compilation. But there are too many classics here to count. I mean, you just look at the first few songs of each of these discs and you'll find something that you instantly recognise. So if you're a fan of 60s music or you're looking to get into it, this is a great start. And my favourite song, what would I say? I mean, the first 2 on disc 2, White Shade of Pale, Nights in White Satin, even if I can say it right. They're just brilliant songs. But again, guys, I love 60s music. I grew up on a lot of 60s music from various avenues, and there's just too much here to pass up on. Now, where did I pick this up? I picked this up from HMV. This was a part of their 2 for 15 set, I believe it was with Now 70s. So 2 for 15, or it was $8.99 each, so £9 each, or you can get 2 for 15 and save a few quid. This is still in HMV, it's very readily available. I'm sure you can find it in a CEX, but to be honest, who would want to trade this in? This is such a great album. And now that I've gloated over the 60s enough, let's move a decade on to Now That's What I Call 70s. The 70s, what a fun era. As demonstrated by this cover art, you got the flowers, you got space hoppers, and you got a bicycle. Very 70s things, of course. Again, nice summery sort of artwork, it looks really nice. And the spine, like most of the others, goes down most of the way, so why did the 60s take a short spine? I guess we'll never know. So, here is CD 1. Queen, ELO, Elton John, again, instant hits. What I love about these decade albums, it really takes the big hits of each decade, starting on disc 2, everything you recognise here, and it's Just great to have it all in one tight-knit album. And there's CD3. Gotta have the Grease Megamix, of course. It's weird having the Grease Megamix, obviously, because that didn't come out till a bit later than the 70s, but of course they are all 70s songs, so I guess we'll let that pass. So obviously this isn't as many tracks, 21, 19, 19 again. So just short of 60 songs, but of course songs were a bit longer here. And this came out in 2016, so this actually came out before the 60s album release, so they were going backwards. Let's have a look at the discs. So there's your first disc, just a sort of normal orangey colour with the yellow. Not really much of an advert here, it's just for full track information. Please visit, you get the idea. Follow Now Music on all these social medias. So, that's the 70s one, that's disc 1 even. Let's have a look at the others. Sadly not too much variety here, they're all basically the same, just obviously with different information. I wish they'd gone for a bit more variety on the disc, like with the 60s one and some of the others, but you know, those are your 3 discs. Just thought they've probably gone for a space opera theme there, haven't they? Anyway, now 70s. Well, for me, there's a lot that, well, I say I recognise most. There are some things I didn't inherently recognise off here, like I'm not too familiar with that Rolling Stones track, or, you know, the Who song there, or, do you know what I mean? Like, I was less like, oh, it's that song with this one. I recognise a lot more of the 60s, but again, I know more 60s songs. So if you're a massive fan of the 70s, then I guess you'll find a lot here. If you're specifically interested in the disco era of the 70s, don't go for this album, go for Now Disco, which is an album I did a separate review on, so please go and check that out if you're interested. But all the same, if you do like 70s music, this is a pretty good compilation album. You got a lot of the big hitters of the decade, you got a bit of Queen, got a bit of ELO, you got a bit of the Stones, Who, the ones I said I didn't know, Jackson 5 are on here, Marvin Gaye, you know, all the songs that sort of personified the decade. And what would be my favourite song on this one? Well, honestly, it's the very last one. It's Video Killed the Radio Star by the Buggles. Because, of course, when this song came out, this was the first music video broadcast on MTV, sort of heralded in the new era that videos will kill radio, the whole television will eradicate radio. And it's funny, really, because CDs, what this album comes on, sort of for a time eradicated vinyl. And now vinyl has come back and CDs are falling off, and obviously digital downloads sort of the king of everything. But I like having physical media. I haven't talked about this much, but as you can see, I like having something physical to grasp onto and preserve, so that's why I have these albums on disc. And that, in a nutshell, after that tangent, is Now That's What I Call 70s. Again, as I said, this was part of HMV's 2 Nows for £15. I got this with Now 60s. So it is really best to do that if you can find 2 Now albums that you really like, because you'll be saving yourself a few pounds. But alternatively, you could probably find this at a CEX. But again, who would want to trade this in? And with that review done, which out of the 2 do I prefer? Well, I'm sure to a lot of you it's no-brainer, but I do prefer Now 60s, only because I recognise a lot more of the songs on there. I think there's a lot more iconic songs on there, a lot more standout ones, entertaining ones. Not that the 70s isn't, this is still a very well-polished album, but I think if you want short, simple, and a great variety, Now 60s is not going to let you down. The 70s does have variety too, it's just whether or not you'll recognise it inherently. But both of these albums are fantastic, and I highly recommend that you pick both of them up if you're a fan of music from this era. And thank you very much for watching this instalment of the Now Review. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, leave your comments, subscribe to the channel. I will see you all next time.
Thank you to our patrons for helping to support the show, and a special thank you to Macra, Jen Samantha Pringle, Brittany Fan 1999, Hooks Media, Ben Freeman, Ethan Carberry Holt, The Welsh Lady, Bruce Danton, The Broken Kitsumanoid, and Cooking at Nan's and DIY, our AMTV staff members.